Welcome to Think Free with Stephen
and Daniel.
Two brothers breaking down ideas and ways of thinking about this thing we call life. Unlock your mind to explore more than you ever thought possible. Think Free. That was something I came up with about a month or so ago. Nothing's new or original. It's something that may kind of coalesce from a few different sources. I don't really know where or how, but I was joking with some other people that I was sharing with, like I'm practicing a TED Talk here, and I don't think I'll ever share it on TED or anything like that, but it's sort of what it feels like. So I'll give you the rundown on how it makes sense in my head, and then love to hear your feedback on it and perspective. If I'm talking and something that doesn't make sense, just interrupt me and let me know if you need to clarify or.
So it's an interactive TED Talk.
Yeah, let's call it that.
Okay,
but
perfect.
Without the slides and it well polished or rehearsed. Okay. Yeah, we're beta testing it right now, basically.
Perfect.
The starting point or the crux of it all. What is the purpose of life? Or one of the big questions that we often all ask is, what is the purpose of life? There's lots of answers that can be given for that. Lots of different traditions and religions and ideas about how to answer that. And so I was breaking it down a little bit more into basically a 3-part answer, and that using the word purpose maybe as a catch-all for 3 different categories, and saying there might be a couple answers, few different answers for that question for each person. And so the first level way to answer it would be like level 1 or the ground level, or I call it maybe the basis or the foundation level. And I would use the word purpose here as well, although not purpose as in all-encompassing of everything, but purpose as just 1/3 of the answer. So you have purpose. What is the purpose of life? What is the reason for life? And what is the meaning of life would be maybe the 3 subcategories of the bigger question of purpose.
Okay.
Is that all tracking so far? Okay, good.
Gotcha.
So the first one, let's call it, lowercase purpose. This would be the foundation. This would be the thing that I think all humans have in common, that we all, can say is the same for all of us. The purpose of life is to live it. It's pretty simple. That's just the answer. It's to do whatever's in front of you. It's to whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. It's going to be, those actual things are going to be different for each of us, of course, but it's not much more complicated than that. It's to go through the hard times. It's to enjoy the good times. It's to make relationships, break relationships, go to bed, wake up, eat, drink, and be merry, all those things. And I kind of equate this to as simple as it's what's in front of you. And in the same way of, a lot of us maybe grew up with the idea that to find a spouse or to find a life partner meant we needed to find that one person that was out there. That there's one person for me that I'm destined to find, and if I find that person, I'm going to be happy. If I don't find that person, then I'm always going to be missing out. And I think the word purpose often kind of gets used in that same context. We figure we have a certain purpose that we're meant to find. Each individual has a purpose that they're destined to fulfill, that there's a reason they were put on this planet, and they need to go find that purpose, just like we need to find a spouse or a mate. And as I've gotten older, and as many of us have found out, the idea of finding one perfect mate is kind of a myth, especially if there's billions and billions of people on the planet. You're not going to go through every one of them to determine if you've actually found the best possible soulmate or partner for you. And so in that same way, finding a purpose in life is not as specific. It's not as unique. You're not that special. Your purpose, the purpose of life is to live it. Do what's in front of you. And you find a soulmate, you find a partner, it's somebody that you click with well enough. You learn how to live together, love the one you're with. Is there somebody better out there that could make you more happy? Who knows? That's not really the point. The point is make the best of what you have. So that's the summary of the purpose of life, is to live it, the base foundation. And then I would say you can add to that. You can maybe take the next step, or the next layer would be to say, what's your particular reason? What's your reason for going off to work, for having that phone call, for talking to people, for building relationships, for going out and having a good time, for starting a nonprofit, for quitting a job, for finding a soulmate, for dating, for breaking up a relationship. Like, what's the reason for living? Which I think is different than the purpose. But again, it all falls under that major heading of the purpose of life. I'm just breaking it down.
Yeah.
And so a reason I would define as something that is specific to each person and can change, and often does change throughout life. And so when we're first maybe starting out in our adulthood, our reason is to meet a life partner, or our reason is to build a career, or it's to complete an education, or it's to make mom and dad happy, or it's to piss mom and dad off, or we have some reason that compels us to do the things that we do. And maybe we have a couple reasons, but generally there's one overarching, reason or motivating thing or fuel that to our fire. It's to get six-pack abs. The list is pretty much endless. And most of why we do what we do, or what gets us out of bed, or what keeps us going when times get tough, is because we have that reason. Or we could call it a goal, I guess. And reasons often change. Life seasons change. You may have a reason to build a business, or to meet the perfect person. And then once that's been built, or once you've met the person, or you've got the body that you wanted from working out, then it's time to find a new reason. And that can change. It can change multiple times. You could have multiple reasons, throughout your lifetime. For me personally, for as long as I can remember, my reason was what my relationship with God meant to me. So God was my reason, or Jesus, or following God, or having a relationship with God and Jesus, fulfilling God's plan for my life, seeing God's kingdom come on earth. It wasn't necessarily my purpose by this definition. It was my reason. It's what motivated and compelled me. And as long as I was moving forward on that path, or doing something that I thought aligned with that, I gave myself a, 5 out of 5 stars on it. And if I wasn't doing that, then I needed to get back on track. And eventually that reason became less and less important, and less of a guiding light for me. And so then it was a matter of, okay, what's a new reason? What's something that gives me a point to go out and work, or to wake up, or to take care of myself, or to eat well, or to do any of the things. And so I decided that for this new season of my life, my reason is my wife. It's my life partner. It's the person that I care most about in the world. And I'm going to do the things that I do that ultimately is because I love and care about her, and I want her to be happy. And if, someday something happened to her and she wasn't a part of my life anymore, then I'd find another reason, and, would go on.
She might be a lot younger too.
The new reason?
Yeah.
It's possible. Don't tell my current wife. Yeah. So that's part of I think that's an important characteristic of a reason, is even if it is another person, having that understanding that it may not be a permanent thing, and that you're not asking that person to be the only thing that fulfills you. So I've talked about this with my wife. She has an understanding of where I'm coming from. I even asked her, does that make you feel a lot of extra pressure? Is that too much to bear? And based on the context that we discussed it in, it's not, because of the fact that I hold it with a certain level of flexibility or impermanence, because I know that my previous reason for the first half of my life, it ran its course, and I found something to replace it. Life goes on. So I have a similar confidence or assurance that even if this reason was no longer applicable and ran its course, that something else could take it. Maybe it's my grandkids at that point, or it's volunteering, or it's going to space. It doesn't always have to be a person or a God. It could be a mission or a goal or a cause or political, aspiration, that sort of thing. So I set the word reason as the second level above purpose. Once we understand that the purpose of life is to live it, then we can decide and define what our reason is. And that's the thing that can change over time. Usually it doesn't, unless the first reason has run its course, expired, we've met the goal that we set. We no longer care about the thing for whatever reason, then we find something else. And then the last one would be meaning. So We can also ask the question, what's the meaning of life? How do I find meaning in life? Is there any meaning to life? Existential questions like that. And for the purposes of this framework, I would say meaning is kind of the icing, kind of the cherry on top. It's the third level. It's the top layer. It can be, the most exciting and profound thing about these three different levels. However, it is often comes and goes. Meaning is, in my definition, not something that we find every day. You don't always find meaning in eating your vegetables or doing the dishes or making sure the laundry's taken care of or fixing the washing machine or, a lot of the things in life don't necessarily provide us with a lot of meaning. However, the things that do provide us with a lot of meaning are things that we get to more or less choose or pick. We can decide which things give us meaning and then focus our time on that. For instance, I sell real estate as a profession, and there's a lot of parts of the job that don't provide a lot of meaning, and I do them anyways. There are aspects of the job that I get to do when it's just sitting with people in their home, talking to them about their goals, helping them make decisions for them and their family and their future that provide a lot of meaning, regardless of the outcome. Just being in their home, talking to them, being that trusted advisor brings meaning to my life. And the more often I get to do that, the more I have meaning in my life. And there's other things too. Sitting with my kids, talking with them, especially when they ask me for input on certain life decisions that they're making. I really find a lot of meaning in that. Traveling with my wife, trying out new experiences. Those are things that bring my meaning bring meaning to my life. And I don't do those every day, and I don't get to do those all throughout the day. Yet, if I accept the fact that meaning is something that comes and goes, it's temporary, it never lasts for very long in any one environment, we're constantly needing to just go out and find new meaning, do things that we recognize, hey, that brought meaning to my life. I might want to do that again. Or I find meaning when I'm in this environment around these people or doing these types of activities. Then we can begin to design our life in a way that helps bring more and more meaning. I think one of the myths is that if you get things dialed in just perfectly, then every moment of your life is going to be meaningful. And that's just not true. That's not what I found to be true. I don't think anybody else has. So, giving people permission to have incremental meaning. And then as you learn that, you get that feedback. Can you twist the dials to create more of those opportunities for you to find meaning in the things that you do? Once you've identified your reason and you understand that the purpose of life is to live it, then going out and find meaning gets to be the joy and the adventure and part of the process that we all have an opportunity to embrace if we want to. So,
would you say that the foundational first part, the purpose, is the same for everybody? Like, is that universal?
Yeah, that's my...
But the reason and meaning would be individualistic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all kind of have the same starting point of the purpose. We're all humans. We're all here for no other reason that we can tell. Despite what some religions would say, we're all here with one purpose, and that's to live the life that we find ourselves in. Yeah, and then we build on it with the other two. And I think most of us have a reason, whether we acknowledge it or not. And I found it helpful to identify what it is, and maybe from time to time is worth evaluating or contemplating if that's still a reason worth fighting for, worth living for, worth trying for, worth sweating and bleeding for, or if there's another reason that would give us more of those things.
So do you think in between the time that you felt your reason was rooted in God and Jesus to the point where then you identified that it's currently your partner, that gap in between, do you think that contributed to some of you feeling lost or?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, there's definitely more of I think I definitely felt more, aimless from time to time and less motivated. And what's the point of any of this? Yeah. And always loved my wife. Had a lot of esteem and respect for her throughout all of it. It's just from my point of view, from my frame of reference, there wasn't that same motivation.
Well, yeah, it's self-described as the biggest reason there could be,
Right.
to your reason to be God and Jesus.
Right.
So then, yeah, to lose that, anything else is going to seem pretty inconsequential. So I can imagine that somebody going from starting at that point and losing it, or no longer holding on to that, it would be even maybe a larger jump than somebody else changing from another reason to another reason.
I had that same thought. Yeah, actually, exactly like you just talked about. It's almost like, yeah, from my perspective, from a value standpoint, like I peaked in my 20s as far as the reason goes. Like I couldn't, I mean, I had God and Jesus all through my childhood, but then as far as a career and charting my own path in life, my early 20s was really when I was able to fully lean into that, going to Bible school and being a pastor and all kinds of things. And so from that value system, you can't find a better reason.
Right.
You can't go any higher. You're at the top. And then there's plenty of people who I'd seen in that era, and that I'm sure a lot of us have heard about, that maybe start out with what they consider a lesser reason. And I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying from those people's perspectives, maybe they chased fame or fortune or girls or pleasure or whatever, and then those things kind of dried up, and eventually they found God later in life, and they like leveled up from their perspective.
Right.
And to then have started at that top level, and yeah, it's sort of, I had that same disillusionment, like nothing else is going to compare now. I've hit the pinnacle too soon.
Yeah.
And so there was some disillusionment there, definitely as part of that maybe that emptiness in between. And I don't know if I would say that I chose or discovered, the new reason.
Sure.
It's hard to say if it was something, but it kind of just dawned on me that there was an awareness that happened that, no, this is it. This is something you can, be all in on, full send, give my life to. That sounds a little bit too weird, but
Yeah.
When times are tough, when nothing else seems to matter, when there's not a whole lot of other reason, that's something to fall back on and make life worth living. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems like, if I was like to look at somebody who would have an argument to why maybe that would not be a healthy way to go about your life, because say that person, your partner, could let you down, or could turn their back on you, or could any number of things. I think there'd be somebody could have a strong argument for then trying to make the case for why God and Jesus would be a better choice. But then thinking as I'm saying this, like talking about it, it's also interesting too, because to be able, from my opinion, from looking at it, you almost like that's part of the reason why there has to be some shadow and intrigue and not fully knowing why God or Jesus would do something when seems like a really bad thing to do. Like, you can't really say that about like your partner leaving you for somebody else, or for racking up hundreds of millions of dollars in debt or something like that behind your back. But a lot of people, give that kind of a response to why hundreds of thousands of kids get child, cancer or something like that, for it.
And give God a pass, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. While still thinking that that's the highest point that you can, the best and most healthy and helpful place to put your reasoning.
Yeah.
Be attached to.
It's the mountaintop.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Cause I could see somebody saying, "Oh, well, that's not really good to have your reasoning be your partner because they're going to let you down. You're going to then have to find something else, and you're going to constantly have to be finding a new one. Some reason why you want to keep going and pushing forward, and then somebody advanced."
Right.
Trying to convert you or something like that, that it would be that. But for me, it's like, yeah, but a lot of that still goes on with God and with Jesus of trying to
rationalize,
and give some of the, well, we just don't know his will or kind of what's his plan is to be able to not have to deal with some of those things that are like, well, he's kind of letting me down here in the situation with the kids or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. The constant need to rationalize or justify or do mental gymnastics to try to still make it all fit. Yeah. And I find too, just kind of talking it out with you is, it's not even so much that the actual God or my actual wife is the thing that's the reason. It's my concept of those. It's my image of God that was my reason. Whether or not that was actually true of a God, should one exist, I'll never know. And whatever concept I have of my wife is always going to be incomplete, or if any person is always going to be incomplete because we're too complicated to be able to sum up in a concept or an image. So and I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I just thought it might be worth saying that the reason isn't so much the person, it's my image of the person. That's my reason. It's my concept. It's my, and not even like a sanitized or, perfect version without any, faults or anything like that. It's just what my wife represents to me is my reason, not so much if she's having a good day or a bad day or, whether I like her hair or any of that kind of stuff that comes and goes. So I think that's what gives it some of the staying power through the ups and downs, is that, as long as that image or that concept or that representation of what we have and who we are together and all that is still in place, then the reason can be there. So maybe that's a little bit of like what happens with the God thing too, is like you just put up or for me anyway, put up an image of God, and he can kind of bounce around within that image of letting people down or not letting people down.
Yeah.
But once that image of God started to disintegrate for me in a lot of ways, which is, for a lot of folks, the deconstruction process, then the reason had to go eventually too. And it was hard and painful and felt like a breakup at times. Felt like being abandoned by a spouse because everything you thought was true or you believed in or put your hope in or reasoned your life over was not there anymore. And was it ever there in the first place? And it's all this stuff.
Did you find that the meaning changed significantly as your reason changed from God to the spouse partner?
That's a good question. I think from my experience and from just talking with other people, we're probably pre-programmed to find meaning in certain things. And I don't know that necessarily changes a whole lot over our lives. We're going to find meaning in whatever it is, and the context might change throughout our life, but how we actually do that. So for me, when I was in the God camp, I found a lot of meaning doing things that I deemed as helping people's souls get closer to God, or, find a better path in life, or to live
furthering his kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I would have defined it. And you can strip away the Christian or the God talk or the context, and it's still basically the same activities that I'm doing. It just doesn't have that overlay anymore. And so being with people, providing help, giving them guidance, helping them see things they hadn't seen before, asking good questions that get people on a track that they weren't. So it's still, that's a lot of the same stuff that brings my life meaning. So I don't think it really changed. It's just maybe the context changed, or the overlay of the religious aspect was gone, but the actual events or topics or actions are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So I think most people would find, if they really looked over a couple of decades or however far in their life, they'd say, there's a real consistent theme here
Yeah.
of what I've done that's brought my life meaning, and probably going to be similar throughout their life.
Yeah. And did you say at the beginning when you were talking about the 3 pillars of that make up what is the purpose? One of them was what the meaning of life is?
Well, I was basically kind of playing with the words. So the whole question of what's the purpose of life, I was breaking that down into 3 answers. And those 3 answers would be purpose, reason, and meaning.
Okay, not the meaning of life, but something that's meaningful
that brings meaning to your life. Yeah.
Okay.
Another way that the question could be phrased in common vernacular, though, is like, what is the meaning of life? And I'd say the meaning of life is threefold. It's
Right.
purpose, reason, and meaning.
Okay.
So it's just like saying, what's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of using the same words, but redefining them and slotting them in a different framework. So if you were to think about your reason for life right now in your current context and season, is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it as we were talking a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying to separate meaning and reason to make sure that they're in the right categories. I don't know. I would say on the spot, without thinking about this much, my guess or what I would probably put it at right now would be being a almost kind of like impacting other people's lives in the most helpful way.
Okay.
Type of a thing. Yeah.
That's what gets you up in the morning.
Yeah, like allowing other people to experience the best version of life that they can, from my kids to my wife to other people that I come in contact with. And so
Okay.
I think I'm trying to separate it from me.
Yeah. No, I get it. And then those activities, when that happen, is also what brings meaning to your life.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where it's a little bit of a overlap there. Impacts your decisions. And
Yeah. I've talked about it before. I don't have, my brain doesn't often get stuck on the whys
right.
of things in life. So the broader question, or like the purpose question, I think some other people that I know maybe would even get stuck on that purpose portion of it, of not appreciating or not liking it. That's just the answer of we're just here to exist. So for me, if I don't have any hiccup on that, I don't think twice about that. We're kind of just here. So, okay, so what are we going to do? And like, kind of, I know how I would like to be treated from other people, and what that does for other people. I've talked about on here before, like I'm really big on like thinking everybody should have access to water and food and sleeping, and it doesn't matter what that takes from me or what we need to do to get there. Like even us just being a country of the United States is really just BS. It's not helpful for us to help everybody else on this earth that are just like us, that are not having the same opportunities or availability for it. And I think I probably would be doing more things to bring meaning on that scale if I didn't have kids. I think it's kind of like anything else. I don't want to take this in a totally different direction, but
no, I like it.
You're kind of capped by how much you can do with your current circumstances, your
time, and resources,
your life and resources. Yeah. If I was, making $2 million a year or something like that, then that was a value for me, then I would be doing more things to be able to do those types of things. So, and I think too, that reason, like you, has changed drastically over the last 5-10 years. So it's not like my whole life has been building towards that one reason.
Yeah.
Because then I kind of look like, oh, why haven't I done more things for that meaning portion to fulfill the reason?
I get that. Can really relate to the kids thing, and for a long time put a lot of pressure on ourselves, while we've been raising kids to be more active in the greater community and globally to, try to minimize suffering. And it's kind of the most basic way I can sum it up is like, if I'm going to do anything to give to anything, it's minimizing suffering is going to make, to me, to be the most impactful or the most meaningful thing I can do, whether it's physical needs or emotional needs or water, clean water, that sort of thing. But a lot of pressure to do more during the season of raising children. And we all have limits and capacities, and finally had to just come to terms with the fact that this is the season and this is where I'm doing the most good right now, is pouring into these little rugrats as best I can and giving them a stable home and helping them to learn and grow in all the ways they need to as best as I can. And that's a lot. That takes a lot, and it is a lot, and it's a big responsibility, and won't be doing it forever. And then there'll be other times to do other things for other people. And so it's not a statement to say, well, you're raising kids, don't worry about the rest of the world. It's not that simple, obviously. Yet there's a real reality to, if you're going to do that right, it should take most of what you have to give.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. I mean, you only have so much time and so much energy.
Right.
For it. And if you exhaust all of it in another area, then you're going to be giving up on another area. And there is other people in the world that can help out with the greater good, but not necessarily so much of helping out your kids.
That's right.
Growing for it. So yeah, I think that's a big thing in our house is you make a decision to have some kids. You've put a big portion of your life for most of the rest of your life towards empowering them and impacting them and growing and teaching and supporting. It's a lot.
It is. And there's a responsibility that deserves to be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
So I get that. And I get the feeling that we always should be doing more.
Yeah.
Shouldn't on ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Well, and doing more, if you take the money out of it, so if you just say, okay, I'm not going to give money, that's a lot of work to do more.
It is.
Like there's not a lot of opportunity, I mean, going over to Africa or something like that and helping with drinking water, like that's to not just give money to help other people do that who do have the time and resources to do that, but to actually try to create time, resource, and energy for yourself while you're still doing everything else. That's huge. That's huge.
It is. Yeah. And different people, of course, may come to different conclusions. I think it's important to be weighing the costs with whatever we decide. If you do have kids and you choose to invest your time and energy in those other things, there may be a cost to your family and to your kids that's worth counting and calculating.
And it's a big task when the institutions, companies, and NGOs and governments are like almost directly against full integration, of that cooperation and aid in all of those spots, like
working against it.
Yeah. So then it's those really small organizations or really small groups of people that then are trying to go and do something with very limited resources in all of those things that we just talked about, the money and the time and their energy for it, which could almost have no limits if you had all of the 8 billion people on Earth, including the NGOs, governments, and companies all working together to solve that one problem. I mean, it'd be done.
What do you think about the idea, I'm sure you've heard of this before, that our awareness of need has far outpaced our capacity to handle that emotionally, mentally? In other words, we've 150 years ago, maybe ish, or longer or less, you generally didn't know about problems outside your own village or your own community or your own town because there wasn't the media exposure that there is today, especially in less developed than even the Western world. It's, being even less years back that you knew about it. So we could, arguments made that we as humans have developed a capacity to care for people nearby. And then when we're hit with all the tragedy and all the suffering and all the needs across the entire globe, it fries our brains. It's too much to handle. Emotionally we get stuck. So do you see any validity to that or merit to that we're overwhelmed or exposed to too much? Or I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. It's just incongruous.
I don't know. For my knee-jerk reaction would be that I would agree with that on the basis of how our current system is set up, and that it would then create, just like I was just talking about, us individually to go give more time, energy, and resources than what we even possibly have available. Like, you could spend every single of your second of your living day trying to go and help solve these problems and never make a dent in it. But I don't think that our awareness has outgrown the capacity for us as humans at large.
As a group.
As a group. You look at it really big. I think it's pretty obvious that us as a human race, we're not at a point where we could have a healthy, one system for the entire world, whatever they call that, like one world government or whatever, and it to be actually healthy. So I'm I don't know. So that's why I'm having a hard time answering it. I don't think we're there yet. So that probably has to be us evolving and maturing and learning and growing to get to a healthy portion of that. But just from a pure resource, I mean, because you break it all down, you don't have to even have any money.
It's all made up.
It's all of that's made up. Right. So do we have enough, just literally, do we have enough water and things to make nutritional food and things to be able to provide, keep people safe from the elements?
Yeah. Shelter.
Yes. We do.
It's the coordination
of the companies, NGOs, and governments that would need to be coordinated, with that being their one and only first objective, just to get that done.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like your answer. I think I was asking a little more specifically about it, just to take an individual person and the amount of suffering that we can expose ourselves to on a daily basis by looking at all the harm that's being done around the world. Just that seems like it can have a paralyzing effect because we can't solve it all. And as recently as 100 years ago, our species didn't have to deal with that level of exposure to the suffering was still there. I'm not saying it's gotten necessarily worse. It's just we didn't know about it. You knew about what was happening in your community. You didn't know what was happening necessarily in the community over, and certainly not in the community across the world. So I get your point. I like that. That's a good summary of us as a species.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I don't think individually. I think it's a bigger question, even individually based, because I think if we really looked at it, okay, if we individually grew and became more, had larger sense of ability to be able to deal with that, what that would look like is then those types of people would get voted into office. Other people would vote those types of people into office, who would then be able to create legislation and change and negotiate and communicate and become friends with other countries and commingle and join. And
eventually start solving these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Well, like one could argue, like even the EU is a step in that first direction.
Yeah.
Of kind of taking some of those smaller countries that, maybe wouldn't have had a country, currency of their own country. And so then they just come up with a euro and it benefits them and helps them. And so I think that's how, if we were to develop and become more mature of being able to handle that type of information and being overwhelmed, it wouldn't then just empower us to be able to go and actually handle it ourselves or go over to Africa. I think it would show and present itself in a way that would be the government and the corporations and NGOs would have a change of priority and direction.
Right. Because they're all made up of
people. Us. Right. Exactly.
So,
yeah. They'll find their reason.
That's right.
In their meeting.
Maybe it needs to change a little bit.
Yeah.
Instead of dollars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just to tie that back up again, it's a framework that's helpful if it's helpful, and if it's not helpful for our listeners, then just obviously disregard it. It's not meant to be this is the way it is. It's just one way of looking at things that gave me some new perspective and took some pressure off. And if it doesn't work for other people or doesn't make sense, then that's fine too.
I like it.
Anything else to add?
Nope.
No. Till next time.
Till next time. Woo-hoo.